Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Good, good. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good.
Good. Awesome. All right, we're going to give a moment or so for everyone to join. Um, just as an FYI, I will be putting everyone on mute, um, so we don't disturb anyone. Doing good. Awesome. All right, so we are about 2 minutes after, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I know we'll have individuals join as they can. So if you see me looking over, I'm just admitting everyone to the webinar today. Um, First thing I do want to mention is that we do have a lot of information to cover today, a lot of great information. This is intended to be a high level kind of overview of the subject. But since this is kind of our first in the kind of career services arena, we will be doing deep dives into um, more detailed kind of parts of your job search and your journey moving forward in the following months. So we'll be doing webinars going over resumes, LinkedIn, job searching platforms, that type of thing. So um, as I mentioned, there's a lot of information to get through today, and we only have an hour together. So I'm going to get through as much as I can, but this will be recorded and it will be placed into the Career Center in your Thinkific account. So if somebody wasn't able to join or you can't stay for the whole thing, it will be recorded for everyone to watch later. Feel free to take notes. Unfortunately, with the amount of information that we're going to go over today, we don't have time for Q&A, but moving forward in the future webinars, we definitely will do that. Um, so thank you all for joining. We're going to jump in. So today we're talking about launching your career in pharmacovigilance and regulatory affairs. My name is Jessica Angelescu. I'm the internship and partnership procurement manager. All right, so what we're talking about. So for language sake today, I'm just going to call pharmacovigilance, PV, and regulatory affairs, RA. So we're going to be looking at career internship and placement. Um, and this will really help you to improve your placement probability, gaining long-term career stability, and just kind of tips and tricks and high level information about your resume, LinkedIn, job descriptions, key responsibilities, those types of things. So whether you're a recent graduate, a career changer, or an early professional seeking to enter or advance in the PV or RA industries, this guide, we're going to walk through this guide and help you through that career development part of your journey. All right, so PV, drug safety. So PV represents one of the pharmaceutical industry's most critical operational functions. The continuous surveillance and assessment of drug safety throughout the product's entire life cycle. So this section provides insight into what PV actually entails, how hiring decisions are made, and who successfully enters the field, and what competencies are required for placement and career progression. All right, so what PV actually is in practice. So it's the operational system responsible for maintaining continuous oversight of product safety throughout the cycle of a drug, biologic, or medical device. And it's fundamentally important to understand what a PV is and what it isn't. That way, when you're building your resume or your LinkedIn profile, applying to jobs, that you understand which ones to apply to, which, keywords, competencies you really want to put out there to allow hiring managers, recruiters, employers to know that you know what the job is and what it entails and how you can essentially help them solve the problem that they're having. So when I say that, I mean when um, when an employer puts out a job opportunity, they have a problem, right? They need to hire somebody. This is a very specific hiring and type of hiring. So when we look at it, it's not research, it's not clinical care, it's not theoretical risk and analysis. These distinctions matter significantly in how PV professionals are trained, hired, and evaluated. So as a PV, your role exists to ensure that adverse events are identified correctly from multiple sources, safety data is processed accurately and completely, regulatory reporting obligations are met without deviation, and safety signals are detected early through systematic surveillance, as well as benefit risk profiles remain defensible under regulatory scrutiny. So this is really why PV hiring is inherently conservative and process driven. When you look at organizations, they cannot afford to onboard individuals who lack that structured understanding of safety workflows, documentation requirements, and regulatory framework. All right. So how are PV hiring decisions made? So being able to really understand this from a hiring manager perspective is essential for being able to position yourself effectively and obtain a position. So PV hiring managers do not, may just admit some people, do not prioritize enthusiasm, clinical intuition, or general interest in healthcare. These qualities, while they are positive, do not address the core responsibilities of drug safety work. So hiring managers are really looking for the keywords, the competencies of process adherence, regulatory awareness, escalation judgment, documentation discipline, attention to detail, and system proficiency. So the core question every hiring manager will ask, it's very highly likely that they will ask, is, will this person process safety information reliably under regulatory timelines without creating compliance risk? So definitely keep this sentence, this question in mind as you're, creating your profiles, you're conducting outreach, you're applying to jobs, you're building your resume, things of that nature. Because candidates who demonstrate structured training and workflow familiarity through certifications, coursework, practical experience are viewed as significantly lower risk hires. So when you're going through the process, you want to show that hiring manager that you are a low risk hire. These individuals require less intensive onboarding, make fewer costly errors, and integrate into operational teams more rapidly. So, who realistically enters PV? So, PV is not restricted to a single educational pathway. Organizations consistently hire from diverse backgrounds, provided candidates demonstrate the right operational mindset and foundational knowledge. So understanding these typical entry backgrounds really does help you to present yourself, your experience, your knowledge effectively. So from a hiring manager perspective, the PV teams consistently hire those from the following backgrounds. So we're looking at life science graduates. So biology, biochem, toxicology, nurse and allied health professionals. So RNs, nurse practitioners or NPs, other clinical staff, medical graduates that are not in practice, pharmacy graduates, clinical research professionals. So clinical research coordinators, clinical research associates, clinical trial assistants, quality or compliance professionals. But the important principle is that clinical expertise is not helpful. It is essential and required in these roles. Operational discipline, however, is absolutely required, non-negotiable. So when you're looking at structured PV training, whether through formal certification programs, university courses, or comprehensive self-study programs, this reduces onboarding risk substantially and demonstratively improves placement outcomes across all background types. All right, so what does a PV do? What are their responsibilities? So these are the things to note that employers expect entry-level or junior PV candidates to understand the fundamental concepts and workflows before being hired. So this is a standard practice in a compliance-driven field where errors have serious consequences. So below are the core competencies that hiring managers expect candidates to be able to clearly articulate, show that they have the knowledge during the interviews, and demonstrate in their application materials. So let's start with the first one. So individual case safety report, ICSR intake. So understanding how adverse event reports enter the system from multiple sources. So clinical trials, spontaneous reports, literature, digital media, health authorities, and other channels. Up next, we have case validity criteria. So being able to determine whether a report meets minimum criteria for a valid case, looking at identifiable reporter, identifiable patient, suspect product, and adverse event. Then we move on to seriousness and expectedness classification. So applying regulatory definitions to be able to classify cases correctly. So serious versus non-serious, expected versus unexpected, which all directly determine reporting timelines. Up next, we have case processing timelines. So understanding expedited reporting requirements, 15-day or 7-day, versus periodic reporting obligations and the regulatory consequences of missed deadlines. Then we go on to follow-up collection. So knowing when and how to request additional information to complete incomplete reports while maintaining appropriate communication with reporters. We have narrative writing. So creating clear, chronological, medically accurate case narratives that present all relevant information without speculation or clinical opinion. We have the MED DRA and the WHO drug coding concepts. So understanding the purpose and basic structure of a medical terminology, coding, dictionaries used to standardize adverse event and product information, and then quality control workflows. So participating in or conducting case quality checks to ensure data accuracy, completeness, and compliance before regulatory submission. Lastly, regulatory submission awareness. So understanding that process cases ultimately flow into regulatory reports submitted to health authorities worldwide. So here's a critical career reality. So candidates who are unable to or who cannot explain these concepts clearly and confidently during the screening calls or the interviews are not considered job ready, regardless of their educational credentials or enthusiasm in the field. Structured training addresses this gap. So when you're thinking about how do I prep for an interview, these are all definitely areas within the PV industry that you want to know, be able to explain to the hiring manager. All right, so ICSR processing, the foundation of PV careers. So it's the absolute entry point for most PV careers. This is where nearly every PV professional begins, regardless of, where they want to go long-term in their career development, their career path. So proficiency in this type of processing really does provide the foundational competencies for advancement into more specialized roles. So what you, the applicant, need to understand from an operational aspect is what constitutes as a valid case. The four minimum criteria that must be present to report to be considered a valid ICSR requiring regulatory action. Minimum reporting criteria. So understanding, knowing the threshold for initiating case processing and the consequences of failing to capture reportable events. Source documentation review. So being able to evaluate information critically to extract all relevant safety data while maintaining source traceability. Duplicate detection. So really being able to identify where multiple reports describe the same event to prevent duplicate submissions. Follow-up logic. So determining when additional information is needed, what questions to ask, how to document those follow-up attempts appropriately. And then audit trail integrity. So being able to maintain documentation of all actions, decisions, and changes throughout the case. Processing to support regulatory inspections. Just add a few individuals in here. So why does this matter? So errors in the ISCR processing level propagate downstream and create regulatory exposure. So an incorrectly classified case can trigger misreporting deadlines. Incomplete documentation can result in inspection findings, poor duplicate detection, inflates safety databases, and distorts signal detection. So when we're looking at ICSR, reliability first, then developing additional competencies over time. So being able to demonstrate structured understanding of case processing workflows makes you definitely an asset, makes you stand out to hiring managers. All right, so let's talk about scope and boundaries in safety assessment. So one of the most important and frequently misunderstood aspects in PV work includes understanding professional scope boundaries. Many candidates, particularly those from clinical backgrounds, struggle with this concept initially, but it's very critical for both operational effectiveness and regulatory compliance. So when we're looking at the three here, it's very important to understand that PV professionals do not diagnose. Even if you have medical qualifications, your role as a PV is not to diagnose patients, not to challenge treating physicians' assessments or provide alternative clinical interpretations. Your job as a PV is to document what has been reported, not what you believe should be reported. PVs also do not speculate. So case narratives, casualty assessments must be based strictly on documented information. It's not about what probably happened or what likely caused this or that. It's strictly the documented information. So PV professionals do not provide clinical opinions outside their role scope. So your professional opinion on alternative medicine, dosing strategies, clinical management is not relevant to safety case processing. And because ultimately opinions can create liability and confusion if documented inappropriately. So with that being said, what do PVs actually do? So they document, classify, code, and escalate based on defined criteria, establish workflows, and regulatory requirements. They apply systematic methodology to ensure consistency, accuracy, and compliance across thousands of cases. They recognize when a case requires medical review and escalate it appropriately to qualified physicians or safety physicians within the organization. So being able to understand, being able to respect these boundaries does build trust with hiring managers quickly. It demonstrates professional maturity, regulatory awareness, and appropriate humility, all valued traits of PV operations. All right, global safety reporting timelines. So one of the most critical competencies in the PV industry, in a frequent area of failure for candidates, is understanding and meeting regulatory reporting timelines. So these guidelines are not flexible. They are legal obligations with consequences for non-compliance. Consequences can include warning letters, fines, and in severe cases, restrictions on product approval or marketing authorization. So you want to make sure that you know these regulatory reporting timelines when you're doing your interview and you're talking with the hiring manager. So even entry-level PV staff must understand that reporting requirements vary significantly by region. So we're looking at the FDA, the EMA, PMDA, MHRA, and then other regions as well. And this matters because reliability under pressure, specifically time pressure, is a core hiring criteria. So employers need confidence that you understand the non-negotiable nature of reporting deadlines and will and can escalate appropriately when timeline compliance is at risk. So missed timelines can create regulatory violations, and they just see it as there's no acceptable excuses for that. So again, make sure that you know this regulatory reporting timelines. All right, so safety systems and database literacy. So most modern PV is fundamentally technology enabled. So safety databases are the operational infrastructure that supports case processing, regulatory reporting, signal detection, and compliance documentation. While you won't have to have hands-on experience with specific systems before hire, conceptual understanding of how safety systems function demonstrates preparedness and reduces onboarding time significantly. So entry-level candidates should understand conceptually safety database platforms, data fields and validation, case lifecycle states, audit trails, and traceability. And this matters for hiring managers because candidates who demonstrate conceptual understanding of safety systems signals several valuable attributes to hiring managers. So this shows that they've invested their time in understanding PV operations beyond superficial description. They recognize that PV work involves structured data management, not just medical review. They understand the importance of data quality and compliance in regulated systems, and they'll require less foundational training during onboarding, allowing for faster productivity. So you don't need to be a claim database expert. Just simply acknowledging the familiarity with the safety database concepts, the workflow states, and the importance of data integrity demonstrates appropriate preparation for entry-level roles. So as a training advantage, candidates with system exposure, even through simulated training environments, onboard faster and make fewer data entry errors when they're within the first few months of their job. And this directly impacts hiring decisions when managers compare otherwise with similar candidates. So you know these. You've done simulations, definitely put that out there. It's going to make you stand out more as a candidate. Okay, so let's look at the PV career progression from entry level to leadership. So entry level, drug safety associate or safety associate. This is entry level. Then safety specialist, safety officer. This is about 2 to 4 years of experience. We move on to senior safety specialist, about 4 to 7 years of experience. Safety scientist or a PV scientist, specialized position requiring about 5+ years with experience, often with an advanced degree. And then PV lead, PV manager, or safety manager, it's about 7 to 10 years of experience. So always remember that there are adjacent career paths within PV. So experienced professionals often transition into or can transition into specialized roles. Things like quality assurance, regulatory affairs, risk management, medical affairs, and clinical development. So when we're looking at career acceleration factors, early process mastery accelerates advancement significantly. Professionals who demonstrate exceptional accuracy, efficiency, and judgment in case processing are identified quickly for advancement opportunities. So a strong foundational training creates this advantage from day one. All right, so let's take a look at a typical PV resume template. So your resume is your marketing document. So for you all as PVs, it must communicate process discipline, regulatory awareness, and operational capability immediately. So I've shared here a template that's optimized for PV hiring managers' expectations. So when you're looking at jobs, reading job descriptions, applying to jobs, you can, and you want to definitely adapt your resume to those keywords, the competencies, responsibilities that the employer, the hiring manager is seeking, while maintaining professional tone. Again, focusing on keywords that drive the applicant tracking system selection. So when we're looking at, your professional summary, this is an example. Whoops, sorry about that. I'll give you a second to read through it, but this is kind of a high level, who you are, why you're a great candidate, the training, education that you have in a very concise manner. Moving on to the core competencies, these are the keywords, the skills, the competencies that the hiring manager, employers, recruiters are looking for. And then when you're looking into the training practical projects aspect, this can also be considered as, work history, experience, things like that. You want to list your training here, courses, other certifications, structured self-study, and really be able to bullet point what you have done as far as responsibilities, and really showing that you have that background. Then we go on to education, your degree, your major, university name, field, and then additional sections you can do. Technical skills is a really great one to utilize. So any kind of self-study or any simulations and platforms that you've used during your training, before, after, during, definitely is a great one to point out. Languages, professional affiliations, things of that nature. So anything that is relevant, definitely put it on your resume. All right, so cover letter template. So when you write a cover letter as a PV, it should be concise, professional, and focused on operational capability rather than personal narrative. Many candidates do make this mistake of writing emotional appeals or lengthy personal stories, but the PV hiring managers don't really want to see that. They want to see that you understand what the role entails, relevant preparation, and professional communication style. So, dear hiring manager, dear hiring professional, this part is, expressing your interest for position, company, about you, about, your experience. This one's more about what you've learned, what you did during your training or previous positions, why you're drawn to the position, what you're looking for in a new role. You attach your resume, that's pretty standard. And then your name, email, phone number, LinkedIn, profile URL, portfolio if you have. But some of the key principles for PV cover letters is keep it to 1 page, 3 to 4 paragraphs maximum. You want to focus on operational capability, not personal motivation. You want to use PV specific terminology to demonstrate your knowledge in the field. Demonstrate that you've researched the company, so specifying some type of research that you've learned through your research. So particularly drawn to company name because of da 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 da. Maintain professional, confident tone and proofread. Typos are disqualifying in a detail-oriented field. So definitely read and reread. All right, so let's look at a PV's LinkedIn profile. So it's a critical tool for job seekers as a PV. Recruiting and hire managers actively search LinkedIn for candidates using specific keywords. Your profile must be optimized for searchability while presenting professional, competent image. So down here, we've added some examples, but let's first talk about the profile optimization. So using those keywords extensively throughout your profile. Keep professional language, process focused, update regularly with new training, certifications. You do want to make sure that you're engaging with PV content. So liking, sharing, commenting on posts to increase your visibility and connect with PV professionals, recruiters, industry groups, and then make sure your photo is professional. So let's look at the your LinkedIn profile. So your headline. So you only have 120 characters max. So you want to be very straight to the point. PV associate, drug safety, ICSR, processing, regulatory compliance, med DRA, coding. I've added some additional ones here if you want to take a peek. But your LinkedIn headline just needs to be very straightforward and focused. You want to make sure your about section, you're showing your core competencies, that you're open to opportunities, that you're a little bit about you're actively seeking entry level positions, that type of thing. So additional LinkedIn optimization tip is they have a featured section. So this is where you can showcase your certification, training portfolio, or any safety related projects or publications. LinkedIn does have a recommendations section, so you can request recommendations from instructors, supervisors, colleagues who can really speak to your process discipline and attention to detail. Also, there's a skills section, so you want to make sure that you add all relevant keywords for a PV. I know we've talked a lot so far about the keywords and the competencies, but it really, really matters that you have them everywhere. And then engagement. So as I noted earlier, follow companies, recruiters, hiring managers, thought leaders, regulatory agencies, engage with their content. This will only enhance your visibility to recruiters. All right, so when we're looking at internship and networking outreach, you can do direct outreach to PV professionals, hiring managers, recruiters, and it can be highly effective when it's done professionally. So a lot of PV positions are filled through referrals and networking before positions are even posted publicly. And this is the key approach, outreach, as it's just the key approach that really makes you stand out and kind of be ahead of the rest. So you can send a LinkedIn request. So something very short, basic, to the point. Hello, I'm pursuing PV career. Notice your experience in drug safety at company name. I value the opportunity to connect and learn from professionals in the field. Thank you for considering my request. Short, brief follow-up connection. This can be a little bit longer, kind of going over, just kind of diving more in detail about why you're reaching out, who you are. Email to the hiring manager or the recruiter. This is really just saying, you're interested in the opportunities, focus on your background, your training, again, those keywords, a little bit of understanding, something about the company, attach your resume, and then leave your information. So when we're looking at outreach best practices, you want to personalize every message. You don't want to bulk send these out. You want that person to know that you reached out to them specifically and intentionally. Keep messages concise and professional. Focus on what you can contribute, not what you need. Respect people's time. Don't ask for lengthy calls. You want to be able to build that connection. Be respectful. Track all your outreach so you can follow up. And again, never send mass generic messages. Individuals can definitely spot this. So, all right, part 2. So regulatory affairs. So RA represents the strategic and operational interface between pharmaceutical companies and regulatory authorities worldwide. RA professionals ensure that products meet complex legal, scientific, and compliance requirements from early development through post-market lifecycle management. This section goes a little bit in detail of career discipline, hiring practices, required competencies, and placement strategies. Take a quick drink. All right. So when we're looking at RA, it is legal, scientific, and compliance requirements through development, approval, and commercialization. So as an RA professional, you interface with regulatory authorities, support regulatory submissions, maintain post-approval compliance, and manage labeling and change control, provide regulatory intelligence. So the RA is documentation intensive, highly controlled, and strategically critical. Every submission component must be scientifically defensible, compliant with formal format requirements, and traceable through comprehensive documentation. Regulatory decisions can significantly impact product timelines, requiring both technical precision and strategic judgment. Unlike clinical development or manufacturing, where workflows are internal, RA operates in a critical environment where regulatory authority decisions have direct commercial impact. This creates culture of extreme precision, conservative decision-making, and rigorous quality control. All right, so how are RA hiring decisions made? So RA hiring follows patterns similar to PV. Conservative, competency-focused, and risk-adverse. RA hiring managers evaluate candidates against specific operational criteria because regulatory errors have serious consequences. Examples are delayed approvals, warning letters, product recalls, or market withdrawal. So these are what the hiring manager is looking for. Documentation accuracy, regulatory framework awareness, ability to intercept guidance, communication precision, confidentiality, and accountability. So a core hiring question that you could and most likely will be asked is, will this person handle regulatory documentation with precision, discretion, and strategic awareness required to avoid compliance failures? So entry-level RA hires are selected for reliability and learning capacity, not for authority or decision-making. Organizations expect to develop junior staff over time, but they need the confidence that foundational competencies are present from day one. All right, so who enters RA successfully? So RA attracts professionals from diverse backgrounds, united by attention to detail, appreciation for structured processes, and the interest in regulatory aspects of healthcare product development. So understanding common entry pathway definitely helps you put you above to be able to present your background. So when we're looking at backgrounds, they're looking at life science graduates, pharmacy graduates, clinical research professionals, quality and compliance staff, as well as medical writers. So when we talk about that and we look at the training impact on placement, regardless of background, structured RA training significantly improves placement outcomes. Candidates who can discuss CTD structure, submission types, regulatory pathways, and compliance requirements demonstrate preparation that hiring managers value. This preparation directly reduces onboarding time as well as risk. All right, so let's talk about the core regulatory affairs responsibilities from an entry level. So as we did with PV, these are the ones that you really want to ensure that you're presenting during the interview, on your resume, on your profile, on your application. So submission preparation for document compilation, regulatory correspondence tracking, labeling, maintenance, and change control, regulatory intelligence monitoring, change control documentation, and submission tracking and status reporting. So a large portion of entry-level RA work involves documentation management with regulatory information management systems, RAMS or RIMS, or electronic document management systems, EDMS. This includes version control, document lifecycle management, electronic file naming conventions, folder structures, archival and retrieval processes for regulatory inspectors in collaboration with document control specialists and quality assurance. These matter because while these responsibilities may seem administrative, they are extremely critical to regulatory success. So submission delays caused by missing documents, misfiled correspondence, or version control errors can cost millions in lost revenue. Entry-level staff who demonstrate reliability in these foundational tasks advance quickly. All right, so regulatory documentation fundamentals. So understanding the regulatory documentation structure and requirements is essential for RA roles. While you won't be expected to have expert knowledge before hire, demonstrating the familiarity with submission formats, documentation standards demonstrates strong preparation. So here are the 4 key areas that you want to be familiar with during the hiring process. So common technical document, CTD structure, submission life cycles, version control and documentation management, audit trails, and traceability. So these are the baseline expectations when being hired. So when you're applying for entry level, this is what they're looking for. So inability to discuss CTD structure, version control, or basic submission types during interviews signals lack of preparation and reduces hiring probability significantly. All right, so let's look at our A resume template. So your resume must communicate precision, regulatory knowledge, and operational capability immediately. So let's take a look at this. So professional summary. Again, who you are, what kind of training have you had? Again, keywords, core competencies, skills. Again, keywords, competencies, looking at the job description, your training, practical projects. So if you're thinking about it, we went over the PV resume and kind of where the focus should be. This is the exact same thing. So being sure that you list out, any relevant work experience or self-studied, focusing on education, and then additional sections if necessary. So certifications, professional affiliations, technical skills, languages. And with the RA cover letter template, you want to emphasize the same thing: precision, regulatory awareness, professional communication. Again, dear hiring professional, dear hiring manager, I'm interested in this position, who you are, what your knowledge is, why you're interested, a little bit about the company, and then again, your resume with your name, phone number, LinkedIn profile, portfolio, if you have. All right, so looking at your LinkedIn profile, so a LinkedIn headline, Regulatory Affairs Associate Submissions, CTD, ECTD, Compliance Global Regulations, FDA, EMA. Again, here are some additionals, but looking at the About section, who you are, what your training is, your core competencies, types of roles that you're seeking, why you're seeking roles. But again, you want to use those keywords extensively throughout your profile. So when you're looking at your resume against your your LinkedIn profile, they should mirror each other. The likelihood of a hiring manager reviewing your resume and then going out and looking at your LinkedIn profile is very, very high. So you want to make sure that these do mirror each other. And again, add those skills, those keywords. Follow companies, regulatory agencies, reps, and industry thought leaders. Engage with content. Request recommendations from instructors, supervisors, things of that nature. Any way that you can really make yourself stand out against the competition. So here are some data-driven strategies for PV and RA placement. So I know this is a lot. We'll talk more about these as we have the individual webinars in the future, as I mentioned before, but just kind of high level, what we need to think about as we go out, start thinking about applying to jobs in the future. So from a final professional perspective, PV and regulatory affairs, RA, careers are fundamentally built on trust, discipline, and consistency. These fields are not where enthusiasm alone suffices, where clinical intuition replaces process adherence, or where shortcuts are tolerated. They are operational disciplines where precision, regulatory compliance, and systematic methodology protect patient safety and enable pharmaceutical innovation. So the professionals who succeed in RA and PV, who are hired, retained, promoted, and entrusted with increasing responsibilities, are those who approach these roles with structured preparation, respect for regulation, and commitment to operational excellence. They understand that every adverse event report, every regulatory submission, and every compliance document carries weight far beyond the immediate task. They recognize that their work contributes directly to patient safety, regulatory integrity, and public health protection. So this is why training programs exist, because these types of responsibilities cannot be learned casually. So your path forward. So if you're serious about entering PV or RA, and definitely invest in the training that you're going through. Position yourself as prepared, competent, individual who really does understand the operational realities and regulatory requirements. Demonstrate that discipline, precision, professional judgment that hiring managers value. So thank you again, everyone, for joining today. I've had a wonderful time sharing all this information. If you were late to come in, just note that this is being recorded. So if you were not able to join the whole webinar today, the webinar will be available in the career services portion of the program, of your program. So be sure to look for that. I should be able to get these uploaded by the end of the week. But again, I know this was a lot of information. I appreciate your patience as we got through it today. And moving forward, we're going to touch on these topics more in depth, more in detail with templates and resources and different things for your career path. So I'm really excited to go on this journey with you for your career development. Everyone have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.